Life's good when you're a
consensual penis.
In 2008, video game executive and wrong man Phil Harrison first tried to tell us that single-player games were over, done with, finito, on the scrap heap. 2008, think about that. 10 years, a decade. Think of all the successful single-player games that have come out since then, and think about the industry that has tried to convince us for 10 years that we don't want what we want. It's amazing. Right up until last year, when Electronic Arts was saying, linear games aren't popular anymore. With no proof. No evidence. We've had game companies try and tell us that certain genres aren't popular anymore. Horror games aren't popular. Turn-based strategy games aren't popular. Bollocks! They still make money. Again, they just don't make all of the money in the world. We've said this before. And I'm just stunned. I'm stunned when I look back and think, holy shit, 10 years. And they've tried to convince us of something that just ain't bloody true, as we're going to talk about right now. Okay, fuckos, we need to have a chat about the eye-popping amount of money God of War has raked in since its launch earlier this year. The story-driven, single-player, not strictly open-world game, the kind of game the game industry fucking hates and deems unsuccessful, has made Sony a princely, a kingly, a goddamn imperial $131 million in digital revenue alone. Just the digital side of things, this is on top of the stream of good news Kratos' adventure has received since release. The game sold 3 million copies in just 3 days and went on to exceed that number with 5 million after just a month on store shelves. Sony, of course, is happier than Elon Musk in a sweatshop, stating the game's success exceeded expectations. Considering God of War is now the fastest selling PlayStation exclusive of all time, it's safe to say they're a little bit pleased. For reference, God of War's $131 million has been compared to another massively successful single-player game, The Witcher 3, which accrued $69 million at launch. Nice. And that was a game selling on multiple platforms. If Sony is pleased, your old pal Jim Sterling is simply, schmug. The runaway success of God of War is yet more proof of a very tasty pudding, a pudding that tastes of single-player games unburdened by microtransactions actually making lots of money, contrary to what the majority of AAA publishers seemingly believes. Between Ubisoft making open-world collectathons littered with monetization, Electronic Arts nuking whatever story-driven games it can, and Warner Brothers being Warner Brothers, it would appear that big game companies directly fulfilled a prophecy they've been banging on about for years, that single player is dead. Oh, have they salivated for the day when that's actually true and not just something they tried to market. The truth is, single player games were never dead, it's just a lot of publishers murdered them. You could argue, of course, God of War sold a lot because it's God of War, but bear in mind this was a God of War that came after a saturation of the series, as well as a sequel that took a dramatic and somewhat controversial new direction. A direction that focused on character development and nuance alongside its action. There weren't sexy minigames, Kratos wasn't an out-and-out bastard, and the game's very mechanics were altered on a fundamental level. It would appear that focusing God of War hard on the narrative turned out to be exactly what people wanted. And it is what people wanted. People have swallowed up single-player games with a good story for ages. BioShock was a huge success, Dishonored was a huge success, Wet was a huge, well, maybe not Wet, but you get the bloody point. Speaking of Bethesda, they've released Skyrim 58,000 times, so it must be doing something fucking right. Fact is, people were still wanting these sorts of experiences when game companies decided nobody wanted them. They chose to starve the market of products they were still hungry for, and it was only a matter of time before a game like God of War came along to plug that gaping hole with a thick wad of Kratos meat. God of War isn't the only storified hit of recent memory, of course. Octopath Traveler Traveler for the Nintendo Switch is actually struggling to meet demand for physical copies, almost as if years of fiddling and fucking about with the Japanese RPG formula has led to people just wanting a simple fuck-damned RPG. With its beautiful visual style, fun storylines and positioning as a good old-fashioned solo role-playing game, Octopath Traveler has scratched an itch that many people, myself included, have been feeling like a rash. But even Square Enix was famously shocked that traditional JRPGs, aka the kind of games that people know Square Enix for, could be successful, as we learned when they expressed surprise over the positive performance its prior traditional JRPG, Bravely Default, enjoyed. IGN published an article titled How Octopath Traveler Became a Big Hit. They named 3 probable causes. It's visually stunning, it reinvents the formula, and it lets you choose your path. I think this is all wrong, except for the visually stunning part. Octopath doesn't reinvent much, it only refines ideas we've seen before and does so very, very well. Also, it doesn't really let you choose a path so much as just give you 8 separate stories on a linear track. I bring this up because IGN, like the aforementioned publishers, missed the most crucial aspect, the real reason Octopath Traveler was snapped up by a hungry audience. They were, as I just said, hungry, starving, ravenous for a game like this in an industry that keeps ignoring games like this. Octopath Traveler became a hit for a very simple reason. People wanted it. And that sounds like a redundant, silly thing to say, but not for this industry. Apparently the concept of selling people what they want is completely alien to these wank-forsaken dick zebras. With all this evidence scattered around us, evidence built up over years that games like God of War and Octopath can be smashes, it continues to amaze and frustrate me that so many AAA companies do not fucking know what to do with their properties. Just look at Electronic Arts and its piss-poor, frankly embarrassing handling of the Star Wars license. Now there's a franchise that would clean the fuck up if it released a single-player experience right now. Star Wars literally revolves around adventure stories, and yet EA thinks what we really want are nothing but online shooters, because that's almost exclusively what they're doing by pumping out shameless money-grubbing farces like the recent Battlefronts. Even worse, Unicronic Arts shut down Visceral Games, a studio known for crafting terrific solo stuff, and cancelled the single-player Star Wars game they were working on, choosing to pivot the design and make the game a broader experience, which usually means unfocused and sprawling and not knowing what it's fucking doing. It's clear that, after so many missteps, Electronic Arts hasn't got a fucking clue what to do with Star Wars, even though I would put money inside my asshole and spray it out all over the world should they just make the exact sort of game that'd be perfect for a sci-fi fantasy story-centric film series, the exact sort of game they fucking cancelled and pivoted. Hell, people were salivating over Star Wars 1313 before Disney decided to jettison the whole idea. Quite why the industry is so averse to making a Star Wars game in which you have an actual adventure is absolutely beyond my comprehension. I don't know, maybe those Knights of the Old Republic games weren't very popular, and that's why EA's been hesitant to, oh wait, Knights of the Old Republic literally sold out in 4 days to become the Xbox's fastest selling title for its time. Idiots. Stupid fucking idiots. Idiots. Idiots! If you want to make some money, you look at where there's a gap in the market with demand and you fill that gap with something fucking good, or even just halfway decent. Most people would take halfway decent during the kind of release drought we've had for these sort of games. Instead, most AAA publishers, dumbfucks that they are, would rather pile on to already saturated markets because they're incapable of leading and can only follow the money with their tongues hanging out. Money that dries up and spreads ever more thin as yet more corporate dickwads pile on top of each other, trying to stick their cocks into one small honeypot. Instead of learning from the runaway triumph of games such as Octopath Traveler, God of War, The Witcher 3, BioShock, Dishonored, etc, 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 these creatively bankrupt companies obsessed with their live services are still pumping out the same games to fewer sales per year, which they're of course trying to make up for with the microtransactions, but they wouldn't have to do that so hard if they were making newer, better games. But I suppose that's too much effort when you could just sit back, throw out the same shit all the time and attempt to gouge more money from a static, stagnating audience. They're lazy, they're cheap, they're uninventive, and rather admit any of that, they just tell us whole genres have died overnight. Pricks. To say nothing of the companies desperately scraping together their own battle royale games because they think if they replicate Fortnite, they'll also replicate its popularity, as if that's how the business fucking works. On that last note, I've said similar things in the past, as long-time viewers will note. I said it when Kinect and PlayStation Move tried to emulate the Wii's success. I said it when MMOs were rushed out en masse to emulate World of Warcraft's success. I said it when an endless slew of dreary military shooters tried to emulate Call of Duty's success. And I say this shit time and again because AAA fuck rockets keep doing the same thing over and again. They don't learn. They won't learn. They do the same thing over and over and over and over, and the evidence of another path is there for all to see and they won't take it. They'll just keep circling the roundabout without taking the turn. Speaking of which, did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
You know, maybe I should learn from Vast myself, because I keep having to make so many of the same arguments for different eras of the game industry, and for some reason I too expect shit to change. But it doesn't. It won't. And so I sit in the middle of the roundabout, spinning around and around without getting into an Uber and telling them to drive me the fuck home. So congratulations to God of War, and congratulations to Octopath Traveler. They may have to be exclusives to do it apparently, but these AAA success stories in the single-player realm are good for us and good for everything. And, I didn't mention any of the successful Xbox One single-player exclusives, so thumbs up, Super Lucky's Tale. Before I leave you cold, stranded and desolate for another week, let me just ask you, if you enjoyed this show, to consider sharing it around the internet. Unfortunately, we're going to have to do that a bit more. We're going to have to do the whole please like and subscribe thing a bit more because of YouTube's algorithms. They've been burying our videos. They've not been showing up in people's subscription feeds, even if they click the shitty little bell icon. And if you've seen me on Twitter, or the State of Sterling video series, you know I've been whining and moaning about that for a while. But it's affected quite a few channels. YouTube seems to be actively shoveling dirt on moderately successful channels. Only recently, they took down one of Red Letter Media's videos for deceptive practices, and nobody knows what the deception was. Where's the line? There wasn't any. It's just YouTube's innovated yet another reason to take down videos for no reason. Unless they're homophobic, they like to keep those ones up. In fact, they'll run those as ads on other people's video channels, so I don't know if we've got to do that now. I hope not. I self-loathe enough as it is. But anyway, as I've said elsewhere on the internet, do circulate the tapes. I like saying that anyway, because it reminds me of the 90s. Circulate the tapes, and play with some Monster in My Pockets. Used to play with those in the 90s. Man, I haven't bought Monster in My Pockets yet. I've got my Mad Bulls, I've got my Boglins. Maybe I can chase a shattered, broken childhood some more with some little rubbery skeletons and hydras and vampires. Anyway, if you did like the Jimquisition, do please, as I say, share the video with your friends on your social media. If you didn't like today's show, you can fuck off. And all of you, every last one of you, can, as ever, thank God for me.